everyone. In this video, I'd like to discuss an interesting topic which I haven't actually addressed directly, and that's the issue about whether or not Iranians are actually Arabs. Now, obviously, this is such a ridiculous topic. I mean, it's not even worth addressing at this point. But I've made a lot of work on this already. The genetic evidence proves that Iranians are not Arabs, that Iranians practically have zero Arab-related admixture. All of my videos have proven the same thing. All of my research has proven the same thing. All of the modern research has proven that Iranians have only around 1 to 3% Semitic-related admixture on average. And just my previous video, it proved that Iranians are not Arabs. Iranians don't even cluster with Arabs. Iranians do not even have an ounce of Arab admixture. But again, it's not about that. In this video, I just want to address the basics about why Iranians are always made to look as if they're Arabs or they're related to Semites in any ways. And why this is actually working against Iranian nationalism and Iranian nationalists, and how Iranians themselves should not look down upon themselves because of this fact. Because I feel that many Iranians have the wrong impression about this. Many Iranians feel that, just because others say that we're Arabs, just because we're viewed as Arabs by them, then we're not Arabs. Then we are Arabs. Many Iranians have this mentality as well, where they just accept it. They're like, yeah, okay, so what if we're Arabs? It doesn't really matter to us. The ancient Persians are long gone. These are mostly the religious types. I mean, most of the nationalist Iranians don't at all do this. But I mean, the religious types just get skewed over by random information coming through the internet and coming from online information, such as Nat Geo's publication that Iranians are actually 56% Arabian, which is complete and utter nonsense. Iranians are not Arabs, and I've debunked this already. But that's not the point of this video. This video is not to discuss the genetic aspect. I'm just going to present some historical facts, and I'm going to ensure that, I'm going to prove that Iranians who are not Arabs are not heavily admixed with Arabs, and why there's a huge problem with this proposition that Iran is somehow miraculously a bastion of Arab and Turkic hybrids. But in this video specifically, I'll solely focus on Arabs and whether or not Iranians are Arabs in any real sense. Essentially, what we have here is a situation which is largely promoted by Western medias and even, white nationalists. Not really Western medias, I would say. They don't really care. They just classify all the Middle East as one hodgepodge, but it's mostly white nationalists. And the reason why white nationalists constantly do this is because they want to appropriate Iran's great and rich cultural heritage. Not only do they want to appropriate Iran's rich and great cultural heritage, but they also want to stake a claim to the Iranian heartland. They want to stake a claim to Iran. They want to stake a claim to the great ancient civilization of the Persians, which they've been doing so for quite a while now. And what they essentially want to do is they want to appropriate this cultural heritage. They want to use it for themselves, and on top of that, they just want to say that it's theirs, because they're not proud of their own. They should be proud. Europe has a great cultural heritage, but they want to claim everything, and they lay a claim to Iran's heritage. But the fact of the matter is that Iranians are not Arabs, never have been. And even in the ancient time, Iranians were not Nordics. Modern Iranians look like the ancient Iranians. Genetically, there is 90 to 95% continuity in Iran since the Iron Age. And the very fact that there could even be Arab admixture in Iran is completely ludicrous. All genetic research has shown that Iranians, all historic research has shown that there wasn't even much Arab settlement. At the time of the Arab invasions, Iran was heavily populated, around 8 to 11 million inhabitants. And essentially what you had here was a nation which was densely populated. There was no way even if a million Arabs came into Iran at that time, Iranians, it would be impossible. Even if a million Arabs came in at that time, today's Iranians would only be 10% Arab. They would only make up around 10% of the population. Not in all areas, but the likelihood of a million Arabs coming in from the Arabian Peninsula, which at the time likely had no more than 400,000 inhabitants as a whole, maybe as high as a million, who knows. I think it is best to say that the Arabian Peninsula was inhabited by a million people at that time. The likelihood of all those people transversing traversing the Arabian desert, marching into Iran, settling there and replacing the native population is completely absurd. Even the Arab invasions, which was undertaken by no more than 50-60,000 warriors, did not lead to the complete mass extermination of the native Iranian population. That is just ridiculous. Such a notion is very foolish to even consider, It's ridiculous, it's foolish, and it's definitely not worth contemplating. I mean, the very fact that Iran is today inhabited by a lot of people, and even the very fact that at the time Iran was inhabited by a lot of people, shows that Iran has always been a dense place. The fact that 50,000 Arabs could just march in and replace the population just overnight is not possible. And many of these individuals also discount the fact that Arab settlement in Iran was very limited. At the most it was 150,000. Most of this was concentrated in western Iran and Khorasan. Most of the Khorasani Arabs were assimilated, and many of them were later just killed during the Mongol invasions. In regards to the ones settled in western Iran, it was very limited, maybe 25-30,000 at most, and even these settlements were ultimately uprooted by the rebellions of Babak Khorramdin and his supporters. So the actuality here is that the Arab presence in Iran was very limited. Arabs were overall just completely wiped out and ceased to have any real power after the collapse of the Abbasid Caliphate. The Iranian intermezzo period ushered in a great period of Iranian revivalism under the Buyids and the Samanids as well as the Safavids. So essentially, after all these transformations, what you had was you had an Iran which was very distinct. Iran which emerged from these transformations is not the Iran. It's not the Iran of one which was highly, dominated by the Arabs. No, this intermezzo period allowed the Iranians to reassert their claim and, to allow them to reestablish themselves. It's very interesting, but nonetheless, I think that most Iranians realize this, and most Iranians are under the impression that Iran is a nation which has a great history and culture, and there's really no association of Arabs here. The only individuals who stake this assertion are obviously white nationalists and enemies of the Iranian nation. Enemies such as those associated with, not only white nationalism but also the Western medias. Furthermore, all evidence has again proven that Arab influence in Iran has always been limited. Aside from the religious aspects, even then, most of Iran was Sufi until the rise of the Safavids. And even before that, even before the establishment of Islam in Iran, until during the when when the Iranian intermezzo dynasties rose, Iran was very strong still, and around 50% of the population was Zoroastrian, while around 50% was Muslim. So again, how can a few thousand Arabs really replace an entire nation and its population? This is such a false belief, and it's become so rooted in many of these anti-Iranian movements that it's been just taken as a norm. But no, Iranians are not Arabs. Iranians have never been Arabs. And the very fact that Iran was never dominated by Arab influence shows that Iran was never an Arab nation. Iran never had any Arab influence, and without Iranians, the Arab world today would be in a much worse position than it is now. I mean, the Iranians really cultivated a lot of knowledge during the medieval ages, and if anything, Arabs have actually Iranians to thank, and not the other way around. I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind here. And also, the Iranians of today are very advanced as a people. Compared to other Middle Eastern nations, Iran is very advanced. The only exception I would say is Turkey, and that's only because Iran is currently living under an Islamic regime. But yeah, I mean, the assertion that Iranians are somehow Arabs is not supported by any historical or genetic or cultural evidence, essentially. I mean, most of this false notion actually comes from the ridiculous assertion by many stupid individuals that Iran was somehow miraculously transformed overnight by the Arab invasion. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. It's impossible. The Arabs didn't even kill many people. The Iranian death tolls because of the Arab invasions, I would say, numbered no more than 200 to 250,000, and essentially out of a population of 8 to 11 million, this is a very small number. Still, a lot of people died during those invasions, but it was not as bad as the Mongol invasions. And even then, most of those people who died, it was not enough to transform Iran into an Arab country miraculously overnight. I mean, such notions are ridiculous, and I would not even put forth such a ridiculous argument. And most of these people are those who really have no idea about Iran or Iran's history or Iran's culture or Iran's genetics or Iranian civilization. And yeah, that's essentially it. Thanks for listening to this video. Please share, like, and subscribe, and I'd really appreciate it if you spread the word of my channel. Thank you and take care. And this is Iran Talk signing out.